Recording in progress. Welcome to another episode of what?
One up.
Oh my no! What the?
I was gonna count you down.
What is? Oh, okay. 5. Go. You count down.
5.
Welcome to another episode of One Up.
The nerd.
Hello, my name is Frankie,
And I'm Kevin.
and you're listening to the show. And One Up to Nerd is our nerd show that follows our nerd journey. We're just sharing our little slice of the nerd pie with everybody. And thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, appreciate it. Frankie, what have you been nerding out on?
Wow, getting right to it.
Get right to it.
That was smooth. We were kind of just catching up before we started to press the actual record button. And I haven't really been playing many games, which just kind of bums me out. Nothing on mobile, nothing on console, nothing on PC. I am intrigued to pick up a new title though called Age of Darkness. It's a strategy game. Kind of looks like We Are Billions. I think that was another one that you could find on Steam, which is a strategy game where you build your colony builder, where then you're basically trying to like create your colony to a certain size within a certain time frame, and then at that certain time frame the horde of zombies come and try to take you out. And I think it's Age of Darkness is sort of in that same vein. However, it is it has like more of like a medieval set in a medieval time period versus We Are Billions, which is kind of almost has like a steampunky vibe, right? You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen or heard of We Are Billions?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't remember seeing it.
It's a title that came out probably 7 or 8 years ago.
They Are Billions?
They Are Billions. I'm saying they. Gotta get that pronoun right. So, They Are Billions, and referencing the zombies, right? Because they come
right.
And it's very scenario. It's less like let's just build a city and make it as big as possible, like a Sim City or what are some of those other classic city builders. This is more like scenario based. So you're trying to create this city within a certain period with certain limitations or environmental restrictions, these things. So it's interesting. It more plays like a puzzle than it does like a city builder. And that this Age of Darkness one looks really cool, and so, like I said, sort of in that same vein. So I'm gonna probably pick that up soon. And you know what? How about this? I will report back with the next episode on Age of Darkness. I think it's out now. So
awesome. You promise? Because it does look kind of fun. Is it multiplayer?
I don't know. I have to boot up my Steam here, which I haven't done in a while. But I get all the this is on your wish list is on sale notifications.
Speaking of 7 or 8 years ago, the sequel to Left 4 Dead is nearing release or has already been released. Back 4 Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever play Left 4 Dead?
I never did, no.
Oh man, I played a lot of Left 4 Dead.
So that's something you're excited about?
Yeah, it's something I'm excited about. What's the verdict on Age of Darkness?
I'm having trouble logging on to Steam right now, so I probably should have done that before we started recording. Anyways, it's called Age of Darkness. Check it out. I'm following it on Instagram and social media and stuff like that. I've seen some really cool images, and I haven't embarked on this task yet, but there's another RTS that I was following some years ago, and I never. It might be Age of Darkness. I'm not quite sure, but I have to go back through like the One Up to Nerd Facebook posts for like 3 years, and I just don't feel like doing that. So.
Wow, I just read a Rock Paper Shotgun article that says that that game engine for Age of Darkness can draw 70,000 units on a screen at a time.
Really?
That's pretty intense.
So, talking about rendering a lot of units on a screen, up until this point, the the one title we can go to talk about or use that as an example, or the standard is Total War. And we all know I love Total War.
You love Total War.
That is probably my go-to franchise in PC gaming, honestly. And Warhammer 3 is going to be coming out, I think, in December. And I'm super excited about that for multiple reasons, but the narrative takes us into the chaos world with the chaos gods. And then we've also kind of are exploring a brand new race that it has that is that sort of Chinese mythological kind of vibe. You can find the trailer. I shared it with you a little week or two ago, and there was some new content that came out today or the other day about how they reworked sieges in Total War in Warhammer 3 Total War. And it's really exciting because what they're doing now is allowing the defender of a siege to place barricades and traps within the castle walls. And the way that works a little bit is like is more like a traditional like base building RTS. So you have like certain generals at certain command points. And when they're at those command points, you're generating resources, you're generating revenue or whatever the resource may be. Okay. Energy. And while that resource is accumulating, you can then, spend that to build a barricade or build a trap,
gotcha.
Right. And so it's definitely going to completely rework the strategy of how you, attack and how you approach these big sieges in Total War.
Right.
Because, like if I'm defending a siege castle, if I'm defending a castle, I have all my units there on the front walls. I'm going to pull them back to that next, choke point. I'm going to pull them back
next layer.
So you added this whole new layer and of defending that I think is going to take some time for the meta to catch up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was when you were talking about the sieging, I was remembering that game we got into for a minute. What was that game on Steam?
Conqueror's Blade.
Conqueror's Blade. Yeah.
Yes. Oh God, I want to get back into it.
It would be so neat if Total War was able to get into, like, I don't know if Conqueror's Blade and Total War sort of merged at some point for some really exciting sort of siege gameplay, because that game around siege was just so much fun. You had your, what was it, like 20 to 40 different, like, battalion of units, and you could upgrade those units, and you were sort of one of many, which I remember, I forget what game did that. I guess Battlefield did it. They had like, commander mode where you could be sort of command support to all the different players, like the 40 or 60 players per side. But there was another one a while back that did that. What was that game? I don't want to say it wasn't Black and White. It was around that same time though. Maybe it was called like Savage.
Was it Dynasty Warriors was a game, is a franchise, right? Where felt like Conqueror's Blade, but I think Conqueror's Blade just had did a much better job. I mean, it had some years to improve on. However, it would be cool if Total War and Conqueror's Blade can somehow do something blended and create something original.
I guess for me, that's like where Total War gets, like, it's a very similar recipe, and it's pretty much the same game with a different skin on it every year and a half, right? Like year and a half. The story, I guess, doesn't resonate for me as much. But I don't know. It sounds like an exciting update for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt that about a lot of games, though. We could use that to describe Maddens and the sports franchise.
Don't play Madden anymore.
No, why not?
I just don't. It's not something I make time for. Because I played that game. I got pretty good at it. We got pretty good at it, and then That was like peak Madden.
Right?
We can't relive those glory days of us playing Madden growing up, right?
I mean, we spent summers playing Madden, and I tell you, I was always better at Madden than I was at NCAA.
Yeah, that was NCAA was I don't think I was definitely not good at that.
You were better at NCAA.
NCAA football, right. Sorry,
yes.
I was thinking about basketball. I was like, I don't remember us playing basketball.
Yeah, we played a lot of NCAA football, a lot of Madden, and
I guess NCAA is coming back from EA.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
coming back from EA.
EA got the license from NCAA and has a partnership to develop the next NCAA football.
I think that's great. I think that's wonderful.
Do you want to play it?
I kind of do. I just I have more. I think I can play more games on my PC than I can on my console, just in terms of time. I feel like if I'm gonna play on I could boot up my PC a little bit easier, faster, and get into a game quicker than I can like doing it on the console. If I'm gonna play on the console, it's like it's the ritual of playing on the console a little bit more.
I mean, you could hook the console up. I don't know. Can you do that to your laptop screen?
Do you have a PS5 yet, or do you have one of the next gens? No. Are you gonna get it?
Yet. I'm being convinced to go to back to Xbox.
No kidding, really?
I think wow. One of my friends, Michael, was sort of telling me about the experience of the Xbox Arcade, or like the Game Pass, or whatever their equivalent is. It basically sort of works PC and Xbox, so you get access to a really massive library of games on either platform you want. And I don't know. I couldn't get a PS5. I tried to order it a bunch of different times and then sort of gave up and decided I was going to do other things with the money at the moment. Have not gone back to try and get it. But
buy crypto.
Yeah, I'm buying crypto. I'm buying crypto in Axie Infinity.
There you go. I bought some Shiba.
Not really. What's that?
I said I bought some Shiba today.
Did you?
Yeah. Whatever, $100.
Now on Coinbase, Shibu
at like 3/10 it's like what? It's like 0.0003 something. I don't know, but that puts it at like 10,000ths of a penny or something.
Yeah.
So, anyways, the other game that I want to talk about is Age of Empires 4.
Oh, what news is out on that?
It looks terrible.
Oh no.
It looks terrible. It honestly, what is it? 25 years? When Age of Empires 3 maybe came out in 2000 and it came out in 2003 at least, somewhere around. I look it up real fast. But I tell you what, I look at the gameplay of Age of Empires 4 and there is nothing about it that looks even remotely interesting to me. I can't believe it. I've watched the gameplay and it just doesn't look attractive to me whatsoever. And that really bums me out. The graphics, the aesthetic looks like a step fucking backwards. There's I'm trying to think of what RTS, when I think of RTS,
I don't know, because I'm looking at this right now and I'm kind of interested in it.
Really, you would just
well, Age of Empires wasn't a fantasy RTS, right? It was a realistic sort of simulation type of RTS, and this has that look. It has hyper realistic graphics. They're not highly detailed.
Hyper realistic graphics.
They're trying to be. They're trying to be, but it's not highly detailed.
It's not highly detailed. That bums me out.
Yeah, it's.
I'm a guy who's
it's kind of blocky.
I'm all about the details. Yeah,
it's kind of blocky. It's not high end realistic graphics, but they are trying to do it.
Right. I don't know if they are. If they are, you've had 25 years to do hyper realistic graphics.
Well, it's not like they've been working on it for 25 years. They probably started working on it last year.
No way. Get out of here.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, and maybe my expectations of RTS is just what I want is just not what an RTS is. You know what I mean? Like it's still very, the gatherers go and gather, the gatherers go and bring the resource back to the, it's just like robotic, and that,
I mean,
that doesn't excite me,
resource management games. I mean, but you're still excited by the Total War gameplay, which is pretty similar from what it was.
I think Total War adds this. Well, the physics are different in Total War. You have guys where you have monsters flying into these battlefields, landing in the field, and the bodies fly. In
you're seeing like simulation sort of physics and animations.
Totally.
And when you're seeing them in mass like that in Total War, it is sort of engaging at a different level.
Yeah. And I watched this video of this guy like kind of baiting some defenders.
I'm watching it right now as we're talking about it.
The video of this one of what I'm
you're talking about. Yeah. In forest section.
Yeah, and then like he's like going in and going out and going in and trying to like bait the player, and it's like, I'm like, that just doesn't. What's
really
look fun to me,
out?
And I'm just thinking that it's just StarCraft that's not as cool. Like I just, because original StarCraft and Age of Empires, those were two RTSs that really rivaled each other back in the day.
Command and Conquer,
and it bums me out that Command and Conquer hasn't come out with something that.
Well, EA canceled it. That was the last project I was working on at EA.
I know it was. I know. I was so pumped. I used to just spam Air Force and spam jets and like, oh God, I loved that, like that last good Command and Conquer title.
And I think Blizzard even I don't know that Blizzard's making another StarCraft RTS. I haven't heard anything. And I think the RTS genre has been really, I think it's been taken over by MOBAs, really, right? That kind of became the dominant competitive PC game, which is Dota, League of Legends, etc. Because this kind of style of RTS, just, you're right, it's not as compelling as it used to be.
It just hasn't evolved either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's the problem. I think, and like I said, I think what always separated Total War from the traditional RTS, was first it does the turn-based. It's not real-time strategy on the economic side of things, right?
It's more of it. Well, it's a more macro sort of city building, like nation building, whereas Age of Empires and StarCraft were very much like resource gather base building micro. And that's really like difficult, right, to sort of learn. But when you're able to focus in on that sort of macro level of like, oh, I need to go take this town to get more resources to unlock these upgrades, the game sessions are longer, right? You could play a match of Total War for 2 or 3 days, 4 days at a time, right? It could take you longer if you're really being
like 150, 200
intimate
turns
about each turn. The real time component of it's hard.
And that gets fatiguing.
It does.
And that's one of the, and then you end up like, and I think because it's fatiguing, you end up cutting corners. Ultimately, you'll end up like skipping that battle, like auto simulating this battle, and then like just like not skipping turns, but like ending your turn sooner than you should for the reason that you just like are trying to like amass this army to go attack that. You know what I mean? So it's tough. Total War is not for everybody, and it has those, and I can very well recognize its faults, and I think that's one of them.
So there's 2 studios, some former colleagues of mine that have the people that have left Blizzard, they've started their new studios. One of them is Frost Giant. So there, I believe,
Frost Giant, don't they make a city builder that takes place in like a Arctic? No,
they haven't released their game yet, and I have no idea what it is. But they're focused on RTS. They sort of have this. We want to go back to the heyday of RTSs and try to. I believe they're trying to reinvent the genre.
It has to be reinvented. It has to be more than more than that what you were talking about this, or like how, like I'm a gatherer, I go and gather this thing, I get this resource, I bring it back, I accumulate wealth, and then I make army, go kill other army. And, I don't know. It's just
some part of the base building and operation needs to be more automated to allow you to focus in on the units and the decisions you're making with the units. Do you think that that's what it is about Total War that you like?
Well, I think that concept of just total destruction in war and Total War, like when it's almost invokes a little bit more emotion when you have, first of all, you have characters that you're controlling, you're leveling them up, you're getting them weapons, and they're also like their progress you're invested in. They have lieutenants, they have guys that are buffing them. You want to see that guy become like the greatest best general possible. Like you want to
so take them, unit persistence.
You want to take them into battle, and you want your troops to do well, of course. But you also want that character or your general to just destroy everybody else. And you want to, it's like you have your top, it's very similar to Conqueror's Blade. It really, really, really is. You have your guy, and you have your
got your archer, your whatever weapon you're using, and those stats, and the troops and their stats.
And you got your top tier troops. Those, maybe your cavalry. You got your top tier ranged guys. And then you have like your ace in the hole, your monster, your dragon, your siege weapons, or your what's the word, like cannons, artillery.
Right. Could have helped you out there. Sorry.
I think here's what it is. This is how it's similar to even playing 40K. When you build an army in 40K, you're invested in the army. You're invested in what they look like. You're invested in the paint. You're invested in the weapons they have. Mm-hmm. And when you go into battle, you want to see each and every one of them do well. You don't, when they die, you're like, fuck. Like I painted this guy for 15 hours and now he's dead.
He should have lived longer, damn it.
He should have lived longer. I want to see them, like, here was in Red Alert. Was it Red Alert 2? Red Alert 2. And in Total War, this happens when characters gain veterancy. I get so,
you get jazzed. You're like, level up.
I'm so jazzed at that. I'm like, I'm loving it when my 4 veteran, Lotharian guard are just destroying people. I'm equally as sad when I see them get destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
RTS doesn't give you that vested interest in anything.
Generally, historically, it has not.
That's where it needs to evolve. I'm calling it right. Tell your friends at Frost Giant. So Frankie's figured out the formula RTS and the evolution.
Well, maybe I'll share this episode with him and say, hey, we've got some real-time strategy.
I mean, there's some like
deep
real
dive.
thought, there's some real like thought here, and I'm really thinking about, like, why is it that Total War gets me going all the time? 40K gets me going. It's like, it's having that vested interest in my players, in my, and it's just like,
and you'll really like focus in on your battalion or your sort of squad of units that is like level whatever, and you add the items onto those generals, and then like you see all the veterancy and the sort of leveling up of the different sort of squads inside of that battalion, and then like you make decisions like, oh, I know this is my power play, I'm gonna go over here and do this. Because I actually found, I forget which, I think it was Warhammer 2 Total War that I was playing with you, and really enjoyed that aspect of it, right? It was really compelling. The longevity of the campaigns, like of a single session, is what kind of threw me off, right? So something that kind of focuses on that gameplay, but in shorter, like 30 to 45 minute sessions where you can have a sense of completion, right? Because you can play like what we were saying, a single campaign for days, hundreds of turns long. It's like,
Yeah, I think, and it's kind of you know what you're trying to do. You know what you're trying to accomplish. Grand campaign, just become bigger, badder, the most most powerful. But is that really like the reward that there should be? There's almost like there should be something else that kind of like keeps driving you, because it's just like return 250, 275, 300. It's just like it gets fatiguing, and it gets kind of it gets repetitive, like just like anything else. I'll give you another example of where this sort of veteran concept, this vested interest, and I'll tie it full circle back to what you said, which was how RTS and where MOBAs sort of took over a little bit of the interest. You go back to where did Dota originate from?
It was a mod for Warcraft 3.
It was a mod for Warcraft 3. What did Warcraft 3 utilize? It utilized heroes. It was one. I think it was probably the first RTS to do so. I remember using the Blade Master on the Orcs faction and playing that like sort of original Dota map on
Blade Master with the Orc Blade Master. Yep.
And thinking like, he's unstoppable, he's absolutely unstoppable. This is amazing. I just want to see him get more unstoppable, And then,
but that was a single session, right? I mean, that's like 18 levels, and then you reset the next time. But it's still that progression from sucky to badass in
and League of Legends. And League of Legends is just, how do I make my character that I'm invested in, to some degree, right? Because it is a single shot, right? But like, I'm invested in him just becoming more badass, and I'm invested in seeing him succeed.
Or customizing the look and the optionality of what kind of things that you can have while you're playing that character. Yeah.
Right. So really interesting stuff. I think this has just been a fun conversation for myself. I'm kind of like,
I was going to make a call out to what StarCraft 2 did that actually made the campaign enjoyable, was those sorts of scenarios progressing from mission to mission, and like having you feel like you're making progress within a story that like wasn't an ever evolving world and experience, right? Because you had the first 3 missions, which you were at Joe Ray's bar in I forget which planet you're on, and then you sort of progress from that point because you're making progress through the campaign with your units, and like it's not quite the same because you were Raynor or whatever character, and you're making like small progress, but throughout the campaign you were able to level up certain units that you had when you'd go to certain missions. It was still the base building, and then like trying to get the mass set of units, and but the pressure and like the sort of ebb and flow of every map was really well balanced. But you don't get that type of experience in like a competitive or multiplayer aspect, which is really what drives retention and engagement for these games, which is what they need to survive. Which kind of reminds me of Clash Royale a bit, right? Like Clash Royale. Did you ever get into Clash Royale on your phone?
Yeah, a little bit.
That was sort of like a real-time strategy game, right? You get your different cards, and your cards have different sort of levels. And my critique of Clash Royale is it became pay to win pretty quickly, where you have to sort of buy all the card packs to level up your characters to be the potentially the highest ranking, so you can compete at the top. Whereas a game like StarCraft, you didn't have that kind of progression system, and it was pure skill, right? So I don't know. I'd be interested to see. Maybe I'll have somebody from Frost trying to take a listen to this, and we can nerd out with them next time. Maybe we'll have a guest to talk about RTS.
That'd be cool. I'm down. Definitely down. I would love to have more guests on the show. Well, what else? I'm so glad that like I remember seeing Age of Empires 4 stuff on my just YouTube and whatever, and thinking like on the next episode, I have to remember to talk to Kevin about this. So I'm really glad that we remembered. I think for me this past week, there was Facebook was down, Instagram was down, and I think we would be silly not to discuss that for a second. And I think it's quite amazing to witness what happened. It went down for 6 hours?
I don't know. I saw that it happened. Didn't really affect me. I'm sort of a 1 hour a day, sort of restricted on my phone to only being on social media 1 hour a day. Um, but yeah, it was pretty, I don't know, nuts. Like a couple times throughout the day I went and I was like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, okay.
Can't
I
get
guess
on.
I'm gonna go not do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, there was it's been quiet since then, right? But there was a whistleblower who came out and released a lot of verified documents about just what Facebook does behind closed doors, how they will prioritize profits over, I guess, what was the
Just like
word?
every other capitalist business.
Right. I mean, and to me, I wasn't really that surprised. I mean, I don't think anybody really was. And I was like, what? They're prioritizing profits? No, come on. Let's be real. You know what I mean?
There's I've been thinking about it since it happened, and I watched I think quite a bit of the whistleblower
60
interviews
minute.
with whichever, senator, I forget which
60
group she was
minutes.
talking, what committee she was talking to, but there's individuals hired to companies, often called product managers or some sort of business manager, whose focus is to go out and figure out how to like generate more revenue and more engagement for a platform, right? And in a small company, you might have one or two of these types of roles who kind of independently work on features. In a game setting, right? It's like, how do we get somebody to have more fun playing our game and want to come back to our game and spend more money in our game, right? Like, the value proposition there is pretty straightforward, right? We're going to give you something fun to do that is enjoyable in sort of 15 to 35 minutes. Like there's a story, maybe there's like a ranking and a ladder. But social media has been like, we're gonna take your social interactions and figure out how to manipulate them so we can get more money and you can be more social with people that you may or may not actually know or care about, right? Which is this
And
sort of
not
like, I can connect with anybody anywhere at any time and have an opinion about it
and
anywhere, anytime, any minute.
and socialize from what is not necessarily a very cohesive you know a way that people are interacting in harmony and agreeing with what it's very divisive and I think there's a lot of conflict that either came from this strategy or conflict that was by design, and it's hard not you can't not ask that question and ask whether or not there's validity to it, and I think there's a good amount to that. It's
I think
frustrating because
absolutely.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't know that it was by design so much as it is a result of design. And I
But no
think
one's stopping it either. No one's saying, "Hey, whoa, this is getting really out
Yeah.
of
Well, so
hand."
this is the
And
sort of network effect, right? In corporations and businesses where you have, executives, and and those executives have directors, and those directors have managers, and those managers have leads, and those leads have, individual contributors. And messages and intent gets lost in translations where it's like, that low level manager to that IC is like, hey, we need to make something that's gonna show really well on our performance report so we can get that raise, right? Like, let's do whatever. And like, they're on deadlines, they're being, performance reviews every month, every quarter, every year. Like, you want to get ahead, you want to get that Facebook stock, you want to become, really well off, we're going to do whatever has to be done.
one of the other things that I think worth mentioning though is that Zuckerberg, and what she said is that dude rules the roost. I mean, there's no one else in tech that has such a leverage on their own company than Mark Zuckerberg does have on Facebook. He owns like 55% of Facebook.
Nobody has
And
been as independently successful as Mark Zuckerberg at creating sort of single-handedly almost, this juggernaut of a company, right? Like,
right.
In those early days, which is what allowed him to maintain that control and ownership.
I go back to like what happened to MySpace. Like, why did we
Facebook happened to MySpace?
Facebook happened to MySpace, but it's amazing to me how irrelevant it became, and therefore it just disappeared.
Well, it from day one, Facebook had FOMO.
Are we just not in a? Is the tech space, the social media space, just like? Is there just not room for two Facebooks? You know what I mean? Like, we have
Snap, we have TikTok. Like, there's three.
I know, but
Facebook also then bought WhatsApp and Instagram, and this is why I think I can't remember if we talked about this on a previous episode, but I was sort of in support of breaking up these tech monopolies where Instagram and WhatsApp serve very similar purposes of Facebook, right? Facebook has messaging, Facebook has image sharing, and Instagram is now being very sort of tightly integrated with like how Facebook is operating. And it's like, does Facebook need to have the next generation social media, right? And that's effectively what we're seeing with the large social media platforms, is like there's a new one popping up for each new generation, because each new generation wants something a little bit different, right? So you see Facebook being sort of a sort of broadly interesting across the generations, but predominantly like Gen X, I would say plus, right? Instagram is a little bit younger, Snapchat is a little bit younger, and TikTok is a little bit younger, but they're starting to sort of like permeate. And like now you're not just a Facebook user, you're a Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snap user, right? You're using all of them because you can't miss out on what's going on in the world.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. I agree with you completely. I think,
which is why I have my one little Facebook group for Kenzie, and I have my LinkedIn, and that's pretty much it. Like I'm not on any of the other ones. It's too much. It's way too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I find myself like switching from like one to the other, to the other, to the other, back to the other, back to the first, back to the second, back to the third, back to the fourth. Oh, maybe I got a message over here, and like that gets
it's fatiguing.
And I gotta like put my phone down. I'm kind of like just shake my head, shake my eyes out, and just kind of like clear myself for a second. Okay, put the phone down.
Yeah,
because with all of those platforms, it gets it just gets overwhelming to want to like try and keep track, keep up with it, like you said, FOMO. But but I agree, it's like I think that there's not enough competition, because we have this like
would you pay for social media?
Yeah, I would.
Under what circumstances? If I had a new social media platform for you out today, and I said, hey, you pay us $10 a month, we're going to give you the exact same stuff as Facebook.
No, I mean, why would I pay? There's got to be more to it than that.
Well, there's carte
blanche, $10, and you're going to get the same exact thing that you get on Facebook, but you're going to pay me for it. Okay.
Yeah.
What? Why? What?
Well, the only reason would be that you own your data and we're not manipulating you. We're giving you a free, or not free, we're giving you an open platform to connect with people you care about for $10 a month. And we're not going to manipulate you. You're going to see everything in sort of a standard way, like you did on MySpace back in the day. And that's that.
I might be interested in that. I might.
The problem is that
the idea of I'd pay money to not be manipulated. Sure. That sounds great. Peace of mind. I'm paying. You know what I'm paying for? I'm paying for peace of mind. And that's value to me, valuable to me.
Yeah. I agree. Sort of going to add to that like one of the issues with social media and sort of social media in mass, right, is this idea that it has to be free to remove the barrier of entry for people that aren't willing to pay or don't want to pay. They want to get those people on there. And then they need to advertise to you, because the only way that they're going to make money off of you being a free user is that they can advertise to you and effectively monetize your every sort of moment on the platform to the best of their ability, right? Which is this sort of like, we need to balance letting you see things that are enjoyable for you, or not even enjoyable, which is what Facebook thing was about, which is the whistleblower complaint was like, we're going to serve you content that intentionally aggravates you to get you to come back and engage.
Yeah.
And that is pretty despicable, right? Like,
yeah, the intent behind that is
fear sells.
sad. It's sad. It really is.
That's the truth of it. Fear sells.
Fear sells, sex sells.
Yeah, which is like Christy and I took these this like well-being class. I think 2.5 years ago. I forget the woman's name that teaches it. I think if you do like well-being on Coursera, you'll find it. But in it, they talk about like the unhealthy social references that lead to issues of well-being on social media, which is like if you're following really wealthy people with really nice cars and really big houses and fitness models and bodybuilders, those are unhealthy social references for you to have.
Right.
And so, if like
it
that whole
perpetuates the idea of that like that's a real life that you can have.
Right.
Not to say you can't, work out and look good. You can't like, work hard and make money and all those things like that. But like there's the constant, like, this is where I am and this is where they are. And it fuels a dissension. It's depressing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know plenty of people, my friends, Nick and Megan, they were like, we're going to get off Instagram for a month because I used to see everybody like around like right as summer started, like July-ish, like right after the 4th, maybe before. And they were like, everyone's going on vacation. All these people are doing all these things and we're not, and I just like seeing it all the time, just thrown in my face,
Yeah.
just makes me feel like that's not something that doesn't make me feel good,
Yeah, exactly. It actually does not. It's statistically, scientifically validated, does not make you feel good.
And what we're saying
one of the worst
is
things you can do for your well-being.
And what we're saying is Facebook does this intentionally. Social medias do this intentionally.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. Like I said, it's sad. It bums me out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's part of the whole push for media literacy and sort of helping people cope with these really aggressive businesses that want your dollars, right? I mean, it's the same thing that happens in grocery stores. It's just a different flavor of it, right? They put all the sweets and the little knickknacks that you can buy like at checkout because it's like, we're gonna get you to buy that Reese's and I'm gonna buy that Reese's. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Reese's Fast Break. That's it for me. I will get that in a Red Bull. Like,
I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to the store right now.
Almost every time. Reese's Fast Break and a Red Bull, and I'm set. That's like zinging.
Yeah, that's it. It's I think it's one of those issues where it's not necessarily by design. Like, I don't know that there was an individual that like maliciously decided that we're going to do this for this reason. I think it's sort of a series of dominoes of decisions that leads to a sort of a moment in time in a company culture where like you can't say no. You're disincentivized to say no or to sort of put the brakes on because shareholders, right? Because Facebook's a publicly traded company, because we have value to return to investors. Like, that's the whole like startup culture mentality around capitalism, right? You got to create value for your shareholders. You got to keep doing that. You got to keep doing that. You can't have risks that you can't mitigate because your share price is going to go down and then all your blah 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 blah. It's like, how do you fix that? You gotta regulate. You gotta sort of ensure that there's safety protocols in place, that people have the education and the training to know how to deal with these things and how to recognize them. Because the problem is that there's now so many people that don't have any other perspective other than like, my social life revolves around social media, right? And this is the effect that it's had on the sort of 12 to like 25-year-old generation. That's what we've been looking at a lot with our company.
Yeah. A lot to unpack. And then
so much to unpack.
And then, so she goes on this 60-minute special. She drops, she whistle blows. and then Facebook and Instagram go down for 6 hours. And it's like, I mean, really made to believe that there's zero correlation, that there's zero cause and effect here, that it's just coincidence 100%. What do I think happened? Do I imagine people on Facebook like shredding papers like, oh, we don't want to... No, I don't, but I don't know, but something happened.
I think it was, I mean, maybe something happened as a result of the influence of people in the company being like kind of on edge, you know, about you know, what was happening in the world, and somebody made a mistake, but
it's just coincidence.
I read the technical explanation of what happened, and it seemed pretty like straightforward to me, and it was like it was a series of errors in an edge case that like resulted in something where they changed the address you know, internally on their domain name systems to be something else, and then when that happened, they couldn't access the accounts to regain control of the issue that broke, right? Because Facebook houses all of their own servers, all their own information. So at facebook.com, if you're a Facebook employee going to log into your system that's, you know, Jim at Facebook, you can't log into that system. And so it ended up being this chain reaction event. And I heard that they had to actually send somebody to a physical data center to rectify the issue, because they were completely locked out remotely.
You think Zuck got pissed? I mean, I'll tell you what, the stock price didn't even do much. It dropped like 6 or 7%.
He lost $8 billion that day in value.
In what? In the overall stock price, but like
it might probably returned because like whatever.
But yeah, it bounced back. It wasn't like the stock dropped 25% or nothing. It really was like, I've seen it move that way on a daily basis. Like it didn't drop more for that reason than it would have just dropped on any other day, because I was just, you know, like.
But you know, like Facebook has 99.9% uptime, 6 hours, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but it just on the heels of this happening, people lost their minds. Like, oh, there's conspiracy, and
it's already last week's news.
Oh my god, it's totally last week. Did it even happen? You know what I mean? Like it didn't.
Right.
It
doesn't matter that it happened now.
It's like the Matrix. Like, did it even happen?
Until people start demanding that, you know, they take a different course and they sort of right their ship, and they, you know, stop being a threat to our world and our democracy. Right. Like that's.
I think they have such an influence, and we've seen that, and the whistleblower proved it. You know, sort of, and it's hard not to think about how do we, what's the corrective action here? What's the contrary action to making social media something good for us? And there's a lot of good that comes from it, but at the same time, like we could see, and we're talking about how it can negatively impact us, and how do we minimize that from where we are right now? How do we improve? How do we get better? How do we grow? How do we evolve?
If that's your thing, because you don't have to be any of those things to live a happy life, right?
Right. The happiness,
but you should.
What?
Learn and grow and you know, experience life, right? Like it is an enjoyable thing, right? Make friends, like, I mean, you know, accomplish things together, right? Like those are really fun things to do.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not
disagreeing. I'm just I think, you know, we've talked about it on the show before, or I've talked about it, I don't know where, but what social media did for humanity was elevate our perspective from our local communities to a national, global, like international level, right? Because our sort of barriers of information access are just gone, right? If you think about pre-social media, it was what's going on in your neighborhood, like what's going on with your classmates, like, you know, whose house are you gonna go by and see if they're there and hang out with, or, you know, do whatever. Who are you gonna call on the phone and go hang out with? Now it's like, who are the 50, 100 people that I need to interact with on a daily basis to, you know, maintain some sort of social relationship with that is reciprocal, right? Like and that's impossible. Like it becomes so much more of a demanding, I don't know, like relationship or situation than living your life on your terms in your way, and like having a local community of people that you're sort of physically connected with, right? um and engaged in some sort of positive community building. I don't know exactly what that is, but now it's just like you're throwing rocks across the internet at other people. You don't know.
Well, there's, it's like social media has allowed society to it's almost like social media led to social justice in some ways. And I don't want to use social justice in the context of like, so gosh, how do I want to articulate this? Because it's given every person that little bit larger perspective that you were talking about, right? It's taken everybody out from their locals, do something. We're finding our place. We can find our place and similarities and share our experience and strengths and hopes with other people, and also their, what they're passionate about, and therefore support them, right? And
yeah,
and I think that's what, like,
it's given voice to historically underrepresented voices in communities, and largely displaced peoples and classes of people who were the predominant influencers of society, right? Like it is, and it's doing that on an hourly basis, in which anybody anywhere in the world is now sort of I don't know that I want to say equally represented, but for sort of lack of a better phrase, like equally represented in social media to share their complaints, right? And make their concerns and their opinions known. And that's, kind of what's led to cancel culture in a way, right? Which is like, should people be more considerate of people? Yeah, I believe that. Should people be held accountable when they're not considerate to people? Yeah, sure. If you want to be massively popular, like, don't be an a-hole.
And I think that's fair. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a balance, though. I think there's something that it should be said for I mean, is it fair to say that we can be too sensitive? I mean, like, did you watch the Dave Chappelle series?
I have not, but I've read a little bit about it.
Comedy is an area that has suffered as a result of this, what we're talking about. And
I think that's kind of bullshit. Like, you can be funny about a lot of things. You don't have to be funny about trans people who've been like the butt of a lot of jokes over the last several decades, right? Like, you're fucking Dave Chappelle. Go pick something else to make fun of that's not like making people feel bad. I haven't seen it, but that was like the gist of it. Is he's sort of being critical or criticized for somehow including trans people in his routine, right? Which is like,
no, it wasn't. It wasn't that he included it. It was, I think you just gotta watch it to see. But
I haven't seen it yet. So what was your point, though? What was the question you wanted to get after? Sorry.
Well, I was just saying, like, is it fair for everybody? What was you?
Oh, too sensitive.
Well, you phrased it in a way that I can really get behind it, and I can't. And if you could repeat yourself, I would really appreciate it. You said, "Do I think is it good for people to?" Gosh dang, I can't regurgitate it. Can you?
About which part? About like what is happening with social media and the influence on, like, historically underrepresented people in culture and society now having an equal voice at the table?
Yeah, no, it was after that.
Was it about the sort of peoples who have historically had the biggest voices in culture.
God damn it! I'm gonna have to like. I'm gonna have to like.
I could keep going. Hold
on. Can you really like? Do you have that kind of like recall? That's impressive.
There's sort of like mental problems of, you know, once I
yeah, I know you have down those dominoes,
right?
Did you hear me? I just
you asked the question about like, are we too sensitive?
I'm just saying like
social media has created a reductionist view of the world, right? Like, you know, and I kind of wanted to
elaborate on that.
So, so the Jon Gruden, I don't know if you watched football this weekend at all, but Jon Gruden, when he wasn't coaching, when he was sort of like he was an analyst on some network, you know, for football, he sent an email that was I don't want to call it racially charged, but it had some sort of inference of race in sort of being critical about I think the president of the NFLPA at the time. And, you know, this was in 2011. He's getting controversy for it today. And, you know, you're seeing all these people that have worked with Jon Gruden for lifetime come out and say like, hey, Jon Gruden is one of the most stand-up people and is not racist in any way, shape, or form. Like, I've known Jon, I've worked alongside him, XYZ, XYZ, XYZ.
That happened a little bit with Chris Pratt.
Yeah, I remember that. So when I mean reductionist, social media is all about parasocial relationships, which are, you know, relationships that people would have with celebrities, right? You know, the Beatles, right? Everybody loved the Beatles. Everybody listened to the Beatles music and knew how much they loved the Beatles. And like when they saw the Beatles, they would go nuts, right? Like, but none of those people actually had a relationship with any of the actual Beatles, right? Like, how well does anybody actually know, you know, John Lennon or Paul McCartney or, you know, whoever? Those are the only two I can name of the Beatles. I'm not really a Beatles fan, but it's sort of a fake level of it's a very superficial perspective of an individual, right? Like when you think about your and I's relationship, we have a very deep, long, you know, history and relationship with a lot of ins and outs and sort of lived experience with one another. But I don't have that with Dave Chappelle. I have a parasocial relationship with Dave Chappelle, right? So like he is who I kind of have created him to be in my head, and like what I want to expect out of Dave Chappelle is X. And so when you take any celebrity and you're like, everybody's got those different expectations, they're all superficial. They don't actually relate to you actually knowing and trusting that that person is somebody, right? And we all make mistakes. You know, we say things that we don't intend. You know, we're emotionally charged. We are not all socially and emotionally intelligent, or, you know, have different perspectives on how we should treat people. And like, how do you actually know somebody's a good person or not? And if like they're, you know, they said something that was perhaps generational, right? When you think about a lot of 80s, 90s culture around what was okay and what was not okay, there's a lot of shit that wasn't okay that was okay at the time, right? It's not okay anymore because
of, but is it not okay anymore because of social media?
I don't ever think it was okay at all, right? I think it was a
we're gonna, but it's like it's so like in the moment there are things right now that we think are okay, and in 10 years from now we're gonna say that, man, that really was not okay,
right?
So like to me it's really hard to accept that that premise, right? That in the 80s and 90s things were okay, but now they're not.
It wasn't okay. It was socially acceptable.
But no, I would argue that point that it was okay. It was arcade.
I'm making a distinction between social acceptability as sort of the dominant culture's perspective on like, hey, this is okay. We're just joking, right? But like, was it really ever okay?
I think that our current reality is the one that matters. And right now, and things are,
and it's not okay now. some things are not okay today when just, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they might have been socially acceptable. You could get away with like,
but isn't it a slippery slope with that? Aren't we just
always
going to be in this perpetual cycle of like, this is okay, but it was okay, but now it's not. It was okay, but now it's not. It was okay, but now it's not.
It was okay, now it's not.
And that's what we focus. And that's what we're focusing on.
Well, I mean, that's what we're talking about. I don't know how much anybody focuses on it.
Well, that's where I feel like
the topic of the conversation.
I guess you're right.
Well, I guess what I want to sort of connect to that is, it's what is acceptable or not is changing on a near constant basis because more people are finding their voice and choosing to be represented in social discourse, right? Like, whereas before they were told to like sit down, shut up, and know their place, right? Like, hey, you don't have any influence on this. Get out of here. You don't like if you voice dissent to pop culture, like get the fuck out of here. But now, what's largely happened is pop culture is fragmenting, right, into a million different pieces, and some narratives and threads resonate with other people, and like
But that
misogyny is not okay today, right? Like,
but that person's thread is gonna it matters to me all too. I have to know what that thread, what is what is acceptable, what is okay for that thread. You know what I mean?
I think that's what I'm talking about with the fragmentation. Like, each of us have discourse language, right? Which is our language of discourse, how we communicate, how we relate, how we communicate our feelings, and when somebody or a group of somebody's starts to express opinion of like, hey, I don't really appreciate the way that X is talking about Y, right? Like, how does that person address that? Do they take a confrontational stance and say, fuck you, I can say whatever I want? Now I think we have to mark this episode as explicit, pardon my French. Or is it like, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that this group didn't trust that I was such a stand-up fellow, that I don't really mean these things, I'm only joking. Well, yeah, that's okay. You might be joking, but it still hurts our feelings and makes us feel marginalized in community, right? Like, so when we talk about social media and we talk about like what the impact of it is on society, we can have disagreements, but what are we working towards? Are we working towards social harmony, or are we working towards like, hey, I want to say whatever I want and don't want to care what you have to say about it?
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of people will answer that question differently.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah, they do. Sometimes I do want to just be like, I want to say whatever I want to say, and without any consequence. And I think that's just like like.
But why?
But what do you mean? But why? Because my brain's why did I learn to paracord? Why did I learn to play video games? Why did I it's because I followed the dopamine. I'm not saying I want to say whatever I want to say because I'm following the dopamine. However, I will say, like, there it is
paying heed. Sorry.
What? I was just gonna say.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's cool.
I got excited.
It's sometimes because social media has us buzzing on all these different things and all the time, it's overwhelming. And so sometimes I think living within those constraints of what's acceptable, what's not, what's okay, what's not, is sometimes just it gets to be too much. What if it was to unplug without knowing now what's acceptable, what's not, what's okay, and what's not, according to what social media tells me it is. I'm just going by my own reality without anything else. I'm back to that pre-social media. It would be would things retract backwards? Would we lose some of that, like that?
I think that depends on your values and virtues and how you want to exist in society. Like, do you want to get along with people, or do you want to be a thorn in everybody's side? Like,
people are gonna like sort of migrate to what they to like-minded folks, right? I think people are going to kind of find themselves hanging around people that they agree with more than the people than they're not. And what they deem is acceptable is going to be based on what that tribe says, right? So it's almost like social media. What? Go ahead.
You're reducing society down to tribalism. Tribes. And that's effectively what the churches of the world have done, which is like, hey, this is our values, these are our virtues, these are our doors. If you're not part of them, like GTFO, right? Like,
but I think that's human nature is what I'm saying.
I don't think it's human nature. I think it's
human nature, like, yeah, I think it is.
I think human nature is survival and proliferation, right? Like beyond that, it's all contrived to some extent.
Human nature is contrived.
We're greedy sons. It's not contrived. Yeah. Our inherent nature is no different than a lion's. Like we just have a bit more sentience and brain cells, right? Like we're all trying to survive and proliferate our genes. That's it. It's not contrived. It's like those are the natural laws of life on Earth. Everybody's trying to survive.
Well, I mean, there's a sort of a beginning, a middle, and an end to our existence. But what I'm saying is that I'm getting a little tired.
We want to break this conversation for another time.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I want to be clear with my message.
I mean, we're exploring our message, right? It's
a very I think esoteric conversation, one that we've never really had before.
But and I think that's what gets left out of social media, right? Which is like this: how do you develop perspective, and how do you develop opinion, and how do you sort of set goals for your tribe or for yourself and what you want to accomplish, right? Like and who do you want to share that with, and how do you want to share that with people, right? Like that sort of goes into, if social media goes away today, what does that look like? Do you want to go live in the woods with your small commune of tribal followers? Like, sure, go have fun. Yeah, but like,
sounds great.
do you want to go interact with sort of society at large and see concerts and have fun and whatever? Like, cool. Are you gonna be on your best behavior? Or are you gonna be a thorn on everybody's side?
Yeah.
Are you peace and love, Frankie? Or are you thorns and sides?
Sorry, I was just I'm in the middle.
This
I'm a centrist.
Are you benevolent or are you malevolent?
Forever in the middle. No comment. What are you?
I mean, that's good. I mean, in sort of religious terms, that's good and evil. Are you good or are you evil?
I'm neutral.
Do you generally intend to be good or do you generally intend to be evil?
I am neutral.
I don't think that there's
hold. Just shut it. Listen, I was. This is gonna sound way tangential, but I was thinking about getting a tattoo. And I want to do a sleeve, and I want to do a villain sleeve. And so people were asking me like what villains I wanted, and I was telling them, I said, I want number 1 and number 2. I want Thanos, and I want Vader. And they're like, why do you want them? I'm like, well, they're badass, first of all. Second of all, they're not. Neither of them are chaotic evil. Think about this. I didn't want Joker. Joker is bad to be bad, right? Thanos is neutral evil. He lives by his own set of laws. Okay? He thinks he's doing something good. He's doing something evil. Okay? You have Vader, who is lawful evil. He lives under the rules of the Emperor, doing evil things. Okay? They're not doing bad. He's not bad to be bad. Okay? That's the difference. The Joker's chaotic evil. Okay, there's chaotic evil, neutral evil.
I understand the categorization that has been constructed around people who have really bad behavior and affect other people really negatively. Yes,
and there's also neutral good. There's also neutral.
Whatever categorization framework. Continue.
I'm just saying, like I find myself romanticizing some of these like neutral evil characters who live under their own set of laws, who
want to control other people and tell other people how to live and remove other people from the world that they don't agree with.
He didn't try to control them. He just wanted to remove them.
in effect, controlling them. When you take choice away from somebody, like whether or not they're going to continue to live out their destiny however they so choose, you're controlling them.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You're removing freedom from that person's existence one way or another
to create a utopia for everybody else.
Who says everybody wants to be in utopia?
They don't know
they want utopia. They don't benevolence and malevolence.
They don't know they want utopia, Kevin, but they want it.
That's you controlling them and just dictating what they want.
No, it's not. Nuh-uh.
Nuh-uh.
Is that the title?
I don't know. Like,
is Frankie benevolent or malevolent? I am Thanos.
I think
but I mean,
so this is.
Go ahead. This is what
the sort of power of narrative in our world, right? Is like we create these narratives and these explanations and these stories and these per se excuses of how to justify certain behavior that we think is a solution to some sort of problem in our lives, right? And we develop affinity for that perspective, and then we sort of create a sort of calcium effect on those perspectives, and we become hardened on those perspectives, and then we don't want to change when somebody says I've got feelings and this is hurting my feelings, and like you're removing some sort of freedom from my life or whatever. Like they're very difficult problems to deal with in mass, because in mass they're reduced, right? It's reductionist, as opposed to living locally, having a local perspective, having people that know people who've grown up with people who want to see individuals succeed at life. It's the sort of the system versus the individual.
And so does social media give the individual a means to
influence social change?
I guess it does. I guess we've seen it, right?
Yeah. And at the same time, social media in the way that it's been instrumented has also given wealth the ability to disproportionately affect opinions and outcomes
on both sides.
I didn't there was no sides in that. That was a socioeconomic side, not a political side.
Well, I mean, I think it was, I think on my side, I tend to associate social media, especially right now and for the last couple of years, with its effect on our political landscape. And it's
been undeniable.
And we've talked about that a little bit. We talked about that in the 2016 election, didn't we? Yeah.
I don't know if we did it on podcast. We
talked about some Russia.
We certainly talked about it.
We talked about some Russia stuff. No, we did. We talked about some Russia stuff. God, was it 2016? Damn. Anyways,
it's 2022 and no,
but months. But the wealth. I mean, you're talking about the wealth, right? And who is at the top has something to gain politically from social. I mean, not gain from social media, but use social media as a tool to benefit them politically.
Anybody that wants to manipulate anybody else to any end.
Exactly, right?
And at some level,
and where the biases lay, in any one of these big tech companies, you got to imagine that they're not really fair to both sides. And I don't really care what side you're on, or this, that, or me, or whatever. I mean,
if you saw if you saw the statistics on engagement in sort of conservative media and the popularity of conservative media on social media during the last 4 years, it was predominantly the top most engaged content was all conservative, extreme sort of content. Hands down, the top, like I think 4 out of 5 were sort of in that political spectrum. So, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about with the initial whistleblower was Facebook feeds people extreme sort of hateful type of content because that's what's going to make them engage and react most commonly. So when you think about the effect it's had, like, I don't know that the effect has been equal, but it certainly had a sort of equivalent effect on sort of all people, independent of values or virtues or political associations.
Yeah, that's fair.
As opposed to what, like, you know, the senator going in sort of the local town, you know, meeting hall and having conversation with local concerned citizens, and
wasn't it simpler then? Wasn't it better? Wasn't it simpler?
Yeah.
Didn't it just feel like
when you didn't have to know like whatever senator from whatever, like, you know, state that, you know, was, you know, whatever, like, didn't really seem like it mattered. But I think a lot of technology has uncovered and allowed us to have a greater perspective and more detailed perspective on the way our world works. And there's a lot of people that care about it and want it to sort of be in a better state than it is today. You know, it's this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited for blockchain. And like, I think there's a lot of decentralized sort of autonomous type of organizations. This is a term, DAO, that you know, it's sort of an autonomous way to an autonomous, private, sort of certifiable, secure way to represent your voice in ways that matter, you know, with predetermined rules, as opposed to like all the funny business that we have that goes on depending if some person wants to, you know, certify an election or like, you know, validate a thing. It's like we wouldn't need 100 audits. Like
seems like the blockchain would be a perfect way to do future elections.
There's a lot of conversation and efforts being made to push us in that direction, but then, you know, there's a lot of people who don't know or don't want to take away the sort of gray area that is a lot of our political processes because they're manipulating them. And then we get back to square one on in our clownmobile.
In our what mobile?
Clownmobile. I have a little rolling around in my head.
Well,
we got really heavy on that one.
We got heavy, and I like, I feel it.
Existential Nerdverse is the name of this episode.
You heard it there, right there. I can't even remember. Existential Nerdverse. There you go. All right. Well, it's getting late. Gotta get some beauty.
If you stuck with us this long, we appreciate you. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments and opinions on these really heavy, nuanced topics.
Yeah, this was a very nuanced topic, and I think there's a lot of different opinions here. I'd like to hear them also. I mean, I think this is a concept that I'm constantly exploring. I think we all are, you know. I think if your opinion doesn't change when you get new information, I don't think, are you really having a conversation? Are you really learning? Are you really listening? I think a lot of people get just really stuck in their views, and it's hard. It's frustrating to have a conversation with people like that, you know. And this can be, and this particular topic brings out an ugliness in a lot of people, you know, and where it leads to, you know.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges for our society is, you know, not having an awareness of, you know, logical fallacies and cognitive biases and the way that our thinking is prone to errors.
Confirmation bias, and like I can't even. Well, go on. Sorry.
It just more the cognitive biases than the logical fallacies and the sort of thinking errors that we make as humans. you know, the less we're aware of our ability to do that, the more that we sort of believe perhaps things that we think are correct, but are sort of, you know, qualitatively incorrect.
Well, I mean, you know, it makes everybody like, sometimes it's like, I need to be a fucking attorney,
right,
to post something confidently and then not have like 15 people, you know, put me on blast. And some people are so quick to fucking pull the trigger on a vicious emotional response to something. And that's where like I think I get resentful of social media, is like, you know, if I were to just sit across the table from someone and put this out there, that conversation would go a whole lot different. You know, we get there's the, you know, reference of like, you know, just like that anonymous kind of,
this is exactly what I'm talking about with
keyboard
it being
warrior,
reductionist.
You know? Yeah,
right,
and
like
it's so frustrating, right? And I'm not the smartest guy. You're a lot smarter than I am. You know a lot of this stuff way better than I do.
because
And
I'm living in that world. But if I get
you
in
know,
the kitchen, you're way
wanna,
smarter than I am,
and,
right? Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I could cook food. I'm good at that. You know,
I can't cook for crap.
I know shit. You look skinny. Somebody needs to feed your ass. Eat a steak, for Christ's sake.
I'm eating a ton.
I'm
Well,
sure
Christy
you're eating
says
a
I
lot
don't
of
need enough
vegan
lunch.
bullshit. What?
What?
You're not vegan right now. You're vegetarian, right?
I'm not. No, I'm not vegetarian.
I thought you were vegetarian for a minute.
I don't eat meat with every meal, but I'm not a vegetarian.
Mm.
I'm moving towards being a sentientist, but I haven't given up meat, so I don't know that I can do that.
Okay.
An aspiration.
Well, let's pull the plug here. Anyways, if you listened to the show, I hope you enjoyed it. I thought this one was, we talked about quite a few things.
Yeah, it was a long one.
RTS is, yeah, maybe going on 2 hours. You know, thanks for listening. Make sure to follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube. Hit that like button. I'll be posting this video up as soon as I can. So I'm not
awesome.
not gonna lose the video file this time.
Make sure you number it correctly. That we skipped an episode.
Yeah.
Or you know, maybe we can make 2 episodes out of this one.
I think this one can get cut.
Do you want to? Oh, we can't make it up. We can't make it. We released the podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
One episode. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good night.
Bye.